Season has been a struggle for Andrew Luck. He's 1-5 as a starter, and despite missing 2 games, he leads the league with 13 turnovers. Since the start of last season, Luck has committed 6 more turnovers than any other quarterback. On Sunday, he takes on Peyton Manning, who has led his team to a 7-0 start for an NFL record 5th season. In 2 of his last 3 7-0 starts, Manning led the Colts to a Super Bowl appearance. Skip, did Indianapolis make the right decision in letting Peyton go in drafting Luck?
No, they did not. Stephen A., if you recall, the day after Jim Irsay tearfully eased Peyton Manning out the back door in Indianapolis, I said big mistake. And I feel even more strongly it was a big mistake now that I look at what's happening this year. I don't want to unfairly pile on to Andrew Luck, but I'm going to make a big picture point, and I'm going to stand by it. 3 years after he left Indy would give the Colts a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than Andrew Luck would. This is a win-now league, as I keep telling you, and so I don't want to look at 8, 9, 10 years down the road. I want to know what can happen in the next 3, and now I can make it 4 years that Peyton Manning would have given Indy a better shot at winning it all than Andrew Luck can give him, even at this stage in his 4th year of development. Let's look at these 4 years in the NFL for Peyton Manning. His QBR, scale of 0 to 100, is 77, a combined 77 over 4 years. That's #1 in the national. Tom Brady, who's 3rd over a 4-year span. Over that span, Andrew Luck has had a 61 QBR. Not bad, but not great. Kind of middle of the pack. But his QBR, as we talk about, it's fallen. He's gone 67, 64, 62, and now all the way down to 38, which ranks 25th in the national. I'm sorry, 30th in the National Football League.
Only Ryan Tannehill was it? Ryan Tannehill and Sam Bradford.
Sam Bradford, that's right.
Good Lord. Got me saying Sam Bradford.
Yeah, you got. Over the 4 years, Peyton Manning has thrown 39 more touchdown passes than Andrew Luck. Yep. He's thrown 8 fewer interceptions. He has 12 fewer total turnovers. And I have to point out that as successful as Andrew Luck's team has been, because it has been a playoff team, and you make the case, they go one step and then another step and another step in the playoffs. How much have they benefited from, we could argue, but I think it's the worst division over the last 4 years in pro football in the AFC South. They are now, the Colts, 19-2 over Andrew Luck's 4 years in the South. 19-2. So it's a gimme division where you're going to win the division and get a home playoff game. Okay, now let's look at what's happened in the postseason. Peyton Manning, he's only 2-3, and he did lose at home to Luck last year, so I'm going to give Luck that one. But Peyton Manning has 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in the postseason, and Andrew Luck in his 6 postseason games has 9 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. So even in the postseason, he has 7 more interceptions than Peyton Manning, because we know Andrew Luck has been a turnover machine. So I'm looking at the totality of this, and on aura, on mystique, on lovability in the city of Indianapolis, horseshoe on the helmet. Peyton was the Colts. It was the house that Peyton built, Lucas Oil Stadium. If you keep him and he's playing at this high of a level, and you could argue, well, maybe they don't surround him with enough help and he doesn't have a great enough supporting cast. I don't know. I'm taking Peyton over Luck. And again, I'm not saying Luck's a bust. I'm not saying I despise him. I don't. I'm just saying this is the great Peyton Manning who had 3 straight years at MVP kind of level. Certainly last year for about half a year he was at MVP level. And a lot of people, including I think Jim Irsay and the Colts doctors, thought he was pretty much shot after all those neck procedures. What do you have, 3 neck procedures or whatever it was? So again, I didn't think it was that he was shot. I thought Denver made a great choice to go with him over Tim Tebow, obviously, as much as I love Tebow. This is the great Peyton Manning. And I think he has served Denver better than Luck was able to serve the Colts. And obviously he got them to 1 Super Bowl in which they got blown out.
I think the thing about it is that in all seriousness, let's be honest about why we're having this discussion. We're not having this discussion to debate the greatness of Peyton Manning compared to the greatness of Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck does not compare to Peyton Manning as of yet. Peyton Manning, obviously omitting 2011 because he didn't play a game due to the neck surgeries and what have you, Peyton Manning is literally in his 17th season in the National Football League. Andrew Luck is in his 4th. That is a 13. If you want to add the year, it's a 14-year. But in terms of playing, it's a 13-year gap, a 13-year difference. And that's where you and I part ways. Because if you, I know you're talking about it's a win-now league, it's a win-now league. The difference between you and I is that you're sitting there and you're betting the house on Peyton Manning in this 3-4 year period where he's doing his thing. If I'm an owner, if you're an owner, that's what you do. If I'm an owner, I'm thinking about the fact that I got this dude coming out of Stanford that may very well be around for 20 years. And I'm going to go with the 20 instead of the 4 to 5. That's all that's going on here, because Andrew Luck does not compare to Peyton Manning. Now, let's take into account what you're saying. Peyton Manning has played at an MVP caliber year. We understand that throughout his career. He's been in Denver now 3 full seasons. Skip, 2 of those years he didn't win a playoff game. He went to the Super Bowl the middle year. His first year there, they lost the very first game to the Baltimore Ravens.
On a Hail Flacco.
On a Hail Flacco. On a Hail Flacco. Last year, they lost to Andrew Luck. And some people believe because Peyton Manning got beat up against St. Louis and hadn't recovered. But again, because at the time he's 38 years of age, you got to go through what you got to go through. So to me, the very points, and this is where it's really interesting from a debatable perspective, because I'm not refuting what you're saying. I'm just saying that doesn't work for me in terms of my thinking. I'm looking at a Peyton Manning at age 38, all right, that obviously was beat up last year. And I'm looking at a guy like Andrew Luck that might have been able to take and withstand a little bit more. Andrew Luck's been beat up earlier this year, but he's still back. You know why? Because he's younger and he's bigger, and because he could probably take a bit more physical punishment at this point in time in his career. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that should diminish the greatness of Peyton Manning. But if I'm Irsay, I'm looking at the future spanning an additional 13 to 15 years. I'm going with that. We are talking about an Andrew Luck that threw 40 touchdowns last year to just 16 interceptions. We are talking about an Andrew Luck who lost his first season in terms of a playoff game in a wild card, but won a divisional playoff game the next year. Went to the AFC Championship game a year after that. So he's actually won more playoff games than Peyton Manning has since he's come into this league.
By 1, 3 to 2.
I understand that, 3 to 2.
Since he went to
Denver. That's right. So I'm saying since he went to Denver. So I'm saying to you that over that same time period, he has more playoff victories. Now, he got an easier road to the playoffs than Peyton Manning, and we all know that. But in the same token, he's been productive enough to justify the change in an era that needed to be made. And also keep in mind, it's not like Peyton Manning had the surgeries, came back, played like he played in Denver, and Irsay said goodbye. There were questions as to whether or not Peyton Manning would ever be Peyton Manning again because of health. So if I've got Andrew Luck waiting, and he's younger, and you've got all these prognosticators talking about his potential, which to some degree he has validated, despite the mistakes, there's no question to me that the Indianapolis Colts made the right move, because you have to take into account the time at which they made the move. Again, if Peyton Manning had come and thrown 55 touchdown passes and all that stuff, and then after that, Irsay said, no, I'm going to get away from you, and I'm going to go with the young dude, you got me. But they made that decision fresh off of Peyton Manning's surgery, him sitting out the season, having not played at all, and they had Andrew Luck waiting in the wings. You have to make that call. And I don't see how, honestly, Skip, from a business perspective, I'm not talking about your football-loving self. I'm talking about from a business perspective. I don't understand how you can look at Irsay under those conditions and deem him to have made the wrong decision. Because you're betting, remember, we're not talking about his game. You're talking about his health. You're betting on the health at the time of a 35, 36-year-old quarterback to one coming in at age 20, 21 with all of this potential. I don't know how that's an argument. I really don't.
Okay, I want to stress, I first guessed this. I'm not doing 20/20 hindsight. I said it from the start. I'm not going to let go of it.
I will support you on that, but you have to be willing to emphasize the word guess. Even though you first guessed it, the operative word is not first. It's a guess. I can't guess at the expense of losing Andrew Luck. I can't do that.
Hey, remember, the ESPN reports versus the Indy team reports that were being reported, their doctors' reports, were that our reports were saying independent doctors were clearing Peyton and saying he was going to be okay. I don't bet against proven greatness. And as shaky as Peyton has often been in the postseason,
right.
I've often questioned his postseason. What is it? I've lost track. 9-11 in the postseason?
Yep.
Okay. I get that. But if I have a chance with a guy who's so beloved in my city that we might go a little farther with him, I'm not going to bet on Andrew Luck because I didn't love him enough, because I told you I would take RG3 over Luck, and then RG3 got hurt. But you can also, I'm going to give you some ammo here to argue back to me. It's also possible that at age, what was he then, 36 or whatever, he needed Peyton the challenge of going to Denver, being kicked out.
It was 36. He was
36. So he needed the challenge to say, I'll show you when I go to Denver, possibly.
I think that Peyton Manning is class personified. I think that we have to do him his appropriate justice by recognizing that although there may be nuggets of material that can serve as a motivational tool for any athlete, Peyton is the kind of person that he's such a perfectionist, he doesn't really need it to go out there and to strive to be all that he can be. That's just the way. That's one of the reasons that I love the Manning family so much. I think they're the first family of football because from top to bottom, from Archie on down to his children, they're just class personified. They do things the right way, and they got the right attitude, and I think that applies to Peyton. But again, and by the way, his playoff record is 11-13.
Okay,
it was 9-10 in Indy and 2-3 in Denver.
Okay.
But the point is, Skip, in the end, what it comes down to, again, you're not betting against. I understand your thought, don't bet against greatness. My response to that is, when it comes to one's health, combined with father time, you just don't know.
Okay, fine.
And I can't, and remember, it's not like this is Ryan Leaf here. It's not like we're guessing, like, oh my goodness, this is Ryan Leaf. No, this is Andrew Luck.
I'm
Universally recognized. I mean, it was a surefire, no doubt about it. He was Peyton Manning. He was like,
I won't go that far.
No, I'm talking about coming into the league, the way Peyton Manning was projected coming out of Tennessee. That's what Andrew.
A whole lot of people loved Ryan Leaf that year. Trust me.
Yeah, but they didn't trust him up here. They loved his ability, just like they loved.
They did. Well, I was all over that draft.
No.
It was 50-50.
You are. But what I'm saying is, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I recall you saying it. You were talking about everybody was nip and tuck, Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning. But the one thing that everybody pointed out was this.
Okay.
And they didn't say that about Ryan Leaf.
Last point. As much as I love and admire the Manning family, I don't love and admire Jim Irsay. And I think in the end, this is my 2 cents from a distance. This is my armchair psychiatry. To me, Jim comes across as a frustrated wannabe rock star. He's bought up all these classic guitars used by Jimi Hendrix and some of the great guitarists. Right. And I think in the end, at that point, he wanted to take over the Colts. He wanted to get, because it was Peyton's team, and he wanted it to be his team and his future. So I'm going to go pick the quarterback, and I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to take over the town. That's what I think he tried to do.
And my response to that, I think that, and I don't mean to be negative here, but I don't think we can ignore some of the personal issues Irsay had and how that may have basically provoked him even more to want it to be his, because the level of affection that he would receive would offset some of the problems he had.
Maybe.
And to piggyback on both of that, some concern with the Colts specifically. Did you guys see the Indianapolis Star report that they held a players-only meeting that happens all the time, but this one was that lineup changes are being dictated by the front office and not Pagano's staff?
Well, that's great. Again, that's a Grigson issue. And
it could be an owner
issue. It could be an owner.
It's an issue.
And it's good that you pointed that out, because yesterday I pointed about Grigson, or 2 days ago I pointed out Grigson. Maybe it's not Grigson. Maybe it's Irsay forcing Grigson to force whatever he forces upon the rest of the team.
We'll see.
Could be.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. The bad man faces Super Cam in Carolina this weekend. We'll discuss who wins that one after the break.